Hello, and welcome to Your Government in Action, a production of Bahamas Information Services. I'm Joy Burns-Roger. At the 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States in Antigua and Barbuda on May 27, 2024, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip Davis, highlighted the devastating impact of climate change on small islands, pointing to the recent bushfires as a stark example. He called for urgent global action to address these escalating environmental threats.
The Bahamas is burning. Bushfires stubbornly burn throughout our islands in the heat of the Bahamian dry season. The flames have scorched our coppice and pine forests, unleashing an ashy haze that has spread across our communities. Bahamians living near these fires have been forced to breathe smoke-filled air and endure these hazardous conditions. At one point, the bushfires seriously compromised our visibility, forcing the Lynden Pinling International Airport, the airport of our capital, to temporarily halt all incoming and outgoing air traffic for several hours. Our fear is that this new, fiery reality will become the norm, and April showers will now be replaced by May blazes. Bushfires are but the latest disaster in our escalating climate crisis. And this problem is not unique to the Bahamas. It is an issue for the region at large. In the past 5 years, every island in the Caribbean has experienced some degree of water scarcity. The people of the Caribbean live in one of the most water-stressed regions in the entire world. Short-term droughts have developed in Suriname, Tobago, Guyana, Grenada. Meanwhile, long-term droughts continue to afflict Trinidad, Cuba, Dominica. Jamaica and Barbados are compelled to implement policies limiting their water use. This region is more water insecure than it has been in many years. The Caribbean are now thirsty for change. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to be clear. I have no intention of becoming a climate martyr. The deadline for climate reform is long gone. The time has come for climate revolution. Human action caused this crisis, and only human actions can fix it. To empower SIDS, we need sustainable, long-term solutions, not quick fixes or gimmicks. Continuing this trend of band-aid solutions without addressing the root of the problem will, quite frankly, kill us. If we keep kicking the can down the road, eventually we will run out of road. We, as small island developing states, cannot afford to wait any longer. Every year, severe droughts, raging fires, and extreme storms claim our lives. We are past the point when platitudes about the corporate responsibility are enough to excite us. We need far more than the empty promises and policy paralysis currently offered by the global north. Colleagues, another significant challenge we face as small island nations pertains to the financial systems that govern our recovery efforts. Recently, we have seen how blacklisting in the international finance disproportionately affects our nations, particularly when it comes to insurance claims in the aftermath of disasters. Such punitive measures, often imposed without adequate representation or input from SIDS, only exacerbate our vulnerabilities and hinder our recovery processes. This is not just a matter of financial policy, but of justice and equity. Therefore, I call upon the OECD and the EU, who are present here, to join forces with us and the United Nations to formulate a global tax treaty that truly represents the interests of all nations, particularly those of us who are often left out of the conversation. This treaty should aim to provide a voice for SIDS, ensuring that our unique challenges and perspectives are acknowledged and addressed in global financial regulations. The OECD cannot give with one hand and take back with the other. True partnership requires consistent and fair support. Furthermore, the unfair financial practices imposed on small island developing states by global institutions can be likened to a knee on our necks. restricting our growth and suffocating our recovery efforts. These practices are not merely bureaucratic hurdles, they are existential threats that impede our ability to breathe freely in wake of disasters. Again, I call on behalf of all CIDs to take your knees off our necks. We seek not just survival, but the opportunity to thrive without these oppressive constraints. If we want to secure a safe and just future for small island developing states, we must lead the discussions and drive the changes ourselves. It will take a serious reckoning with the fact that the major polluters have reaped economic benefits while disproportionately offloading environmental costs onto vulnerable nations like ours. Accountability mechanisms will also be key in operationalizing the Loss and Damage Fund established at COP28. We have secured less than 1% of the estimated $400 billion per year needed to assist the most severely impacted societies. Colleagues, it is more than ever that we work together to operationalize this fund. No one CID can do it alone. We must unite, because unity will be the key in unlocking concessional finance from the very creators of this most dire emergency. Climate and debt are twin crises which we in the Caribbean know all too well. My nation has incurred billions in debt due to recovery efforts from climate-driven disasters, and billions more are needed to meet climate change targets. We cannot and should not take this tremendous burden on alone, while those who created this problem do the bare minimum to take accountability for the impact they've had on our nations. Of course, as we forge new pathways here, it is important not just to point fingers, but to take a good look at what is going on inside our own countries. The COVID-19 pandemic and ongoing global conflicts have underscored the need to strengthen our health systems, invest in social protection, and address food insecurity. Economic diversification will be the key to increasing our resilience to external shocks, and investments in clean energy and the digital transformation remain vital for the sustainable development of all small island developing states. As we look ahead to the next 10 years, let us commit to holding major polluters accountable, securing the financing we need, and developing the best future we can for our people. Thank you.
In a press conference held at the office of the Prime Minister on May 24, 2024, Minister of Economic Affairs, the Honorable Michael Alkitis, provided an overview of the upcoming budget communication to be presented by the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip Davis, in the House of Assembly on May 29, 2024.
Of course, the whole purpose of this budget exercise is that the Ministry of Finance is responsible for the actual funding of the government. So this is the mechanism by which we share with the public the way in which the government will be financed. That is the provision of money for all of the various government agencies and ministries to be able to fulfill their function. And equally important, this is an opportunity to demonstrate to the public, to the investing community, to the wider financial community, that we are seeking to ensure a stable and predictable and positive economic environment for people to conduct business and to go about their daily lives. A little bit about the process before I talk about what will actually happen. We are at the final stages of the preparation. As I said, the budget will be presented on Wednesday. And so over the past few months, the Ministry of Finance has been in discussions with the various ministries and departments where they have made their requests for money that they need to fulfill their function in this coming year. And we've been having some back and forth and some meetings to refine those requests and put together a budget that takes into account the global economy and what we expect the global economy to do in terms of growth, and what we expect, how we expect our economy to perform as a result of what's happening globally. We take those growth rates and we are able to then use that to make estimates of how much revenue the government will earn, and we balance that against the requests that we are getting from the various departments about initiatives that they want to do or services that they want to expand, or just to continue to fund the services that they offer. And so you can imagine it's a balancing act because there's constantly demand for more resources. The government has to make an estimation as to how much it can actually do in one given year, given the state of the economy. As we said when this administration first came into office, we wanted to revive our economy, not through cutting expenses or raising taxes, but through use of a four-point plan: growing the economy, improving revenue administration, containing costs, and finding new sources of revenue. And we felt that over a multi-year period, we will see our deficits go down, and borrowing requirements go down, and our debt to GDP ratio go down. I can happily say that we have seen the positive results of that so far in the last two budgets that we have presented. And I can say, without speaking out of school or preempting anything, that we will see that positive trend continue. So you, the Bahamian public, will be able to see the progress that has been made over the last 2.5 years in terms of, as we say, getting the fiscal house in order. This is the next 2 years and going forward would be a critical period in our country in terms of the economy, because there was a very, very rapid recovery as we came out of COVID. We saw growth rates in the double digits. The economy grew coming off that low base. Now, as we normalize and move into the medium and longer term, we should see those growth rates get back to normal, but we are very, very happy that about the forecast in terms of growth rates around 2%, 2.5%, which are much better than we have been experiencing over the last 20 years pre-COVID. And so this is a very, very critical period. We will take the opportunity to inform the public about the improvements, but always mindful that we have to maintain the discipline because up for questions soon, but I just want to make one last point. So expect to see the positive trend continue. We're very excited about how far we've come and what we expect to see during the coming year. The economy continues to rebound very nicely, of course, led by tourism and construction. And so I think the Bahamian people can have good reason to be hopeful and optimistic about this budget and the performance and what we are forecasting. Back in 2021, during the height of the COVID pandemic, Bahamians rightly became very, very concerned about the high levels of government debt. At some point, the debt to GDP ratio touched 100%. That's a little over 100%. I think it was June 2021. Before the pandemic, it was 58%. Understandably, it went up because the economy stopped. And so Bahamians became very, very concerned. On coming to office, this administration promised that we would address that issue, the issue of the debt, because it was so concerning to the public. And so what we undertook to do was a couple of things. There is a debt management office as required by the Public Finance Management Act within the Ministry of Finance. We pledged that we would give that office the resources, the personnel, et cetera, that they need, because what they do is they constantly analyze the government debt, how much debt we have outstanding, what it's composed of in terms of whether it's loans, whether it's overdraft, whether it's bonds, and look at the maturity, the interest rates, and they're constantly analyzing to find ways that we can optimize that, meaning can we lower the cost? What is the ideal mix in terms of how long the debt is, that, debt management. We also said that we would form a private sector debt advisory committee. And so what we what we did was we went out into the private sector. We got people involved in the financial services area in the private sector. We formed a committee chaired by former Minister of State for Finance, James Smith, and also former Governor of the Central Bank. And what we wanted to do was get a private sector view who would work along with the Ministry of Finance Debt Management Unit to give their input and advice on what we should be doing in terms of the management of the debt. And so that is in place, and they've been working very well. Additionally, because a lot of our debt is held by international financial institutions, private investors, we engaged, we went through a procurement process, and then we awarded an engagement to Rothschild, which is an international financial advisory company, to assist us in our outreach and our engagement with the international investor community, inclusive of the rating agencies. So we're still engaged with them. And so what they've been doing over the past few years is helping us in our engagement in terms of investor meetings. I think it was in my presentation was that I gave to a group of investors last month. Several groups of investors was reported on, where I was giving them an update on the Bahamas. And so Rothschild has been assisting us in those types of engagements, communications, because you might recall, it's a long answer for one question, right? But I want to give the background. You might recall that about maybe a year to 18 months ago, there was a lot of reporting, a lot of commentary on the trading, the price of the government debt, and how the question that we were in danger of default. And we felt at the time that those prices, I don't want to get too technical, but those prices did not reflect what was truly happening in the economy. And so I went and did a lot of investor engagement, really telling the story about the Bahamas, what's happening with our economy. And then so you've seen, if you have some time just to look it up, you've seen that the prices have improved dramatically. The yields, again, which is an indication of the price. Like I said, I don't want to get too technical, but this picture has dramatically improved, and a lot of people were very, very happy with that, a lot of investors. And so that sort of investor engagement is important because, for example, if people see that your debt is trading at very, very low levels, meaning nobody wants it, then when it's time to go, if you needed to go back and raise some more money in the bond market, then the price that you will have to pay will be extremely high, and you run the danger you run the risk of nobody wanting it. So all of that, I just wanted to put it in the context of a structured plan, inclusive of providing our own internal department here, our own internal unit in the finance ministry with the resources that they need, bringing in private sector, local individuals involved in the industry to get the advice, and then bringing in, again, a professional advisor, because the situation required that we do our best to make sure that we change that concept and that perception that somehow something was wrong with the Bahamas. The final point I want to make on that one question is, you would recall, and all of this is important because, again, you might recall about 2 years ago, there was a headline splashed in a couple of the papers where a regional economist had predicted that within a year or two, the Bahamas would be in the midst of an IMF program, meaning that things would get so bad that we would have to go to the IMF and they would be telling us how to run our economy. Well, not only did that not happen, I think when you sort of peruse some of the observances of external observers, you'll see how pleased they are with in terms of getting the fiscal house in order, the progress that we have made. And so all of that becomes important because sometimes when you are buffeted with this negative news, you have to be able to put the story out, and you use various different tools to get the story out. I think what you're alluding to is the fact that the OECD initiative for the 15% global minimum corporate tax on multinational corporations with 750 million euro of turnover. Again, a little bit of background. We had that initiative come out. I think the Bahamas signed on to it in March of 2021. I think it was March. We said there was 133, 135 countries that signed on. We signed on. What we did was we commissioned a study of the entire taxation system of the Bahamas by one of the big four accounting companies. One of them, I think it was Deloitte. They gave us a report. We took the information from that report and did a green paper, which we published, and we said, listen, we have this report. Here are some options that are available to us. What do you think? Unfortunately, I think that green paper was sort of construed as this is what the government is doing, but really was a discussion paper. Coming out of all of that, we got responses. So what we intend to do is move forward with that aspect of what they call the Pillar 2, which is we're going to put in place the 15% for those multinational corporations with 750 million euros or more annual turnover. So it doesn't affect the wider business community. We're going to go ahead with that pillar, which we estimate there might be maybe about maximum 50 multinational companies that fall within that category. And we've made some estimates of possible revenue that might accrue. As more information comes forward, we get a better idea of the number of companies, but that doesn't impact your Bahamian companies, your sort of regular companies. So you'll see some more. Actually, we intend to lay this legislation to bring that into effect, the 15% global for the multinational corporations. So you will see our intention is to present the legislation at the budget time and allow the summer period between budget time and when we go back to Parliament in September, late September, mid to late September for additional consultation. And then we intend to bring that into effect. We have been having a lot of consultations with companies who fall within that range, and we don't expect to see any sort of negative fallout in terms of pushback or exodus of business.
More of your government in action when we return. Welcome back to Your Government in Action. I'm Joy Burns-Roger. The governments of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and the African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim Bank, have signed an agreement for the Bahamas to host the 31st Afrexim Bank annual meetings and the third edition of the Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum. The meetings will be held here in Nassau, Bahamas from June 12th to 14th of this year.
Today's signing ceremony is an important first for the Bahamas, as well as for Africa-Caribbean relations. It reminds me of the profound potential buried within our diaspora that I spoke of just a few weeks ago at the Bank of Botswana. What I said, a potential shaped by our collective history, a bloodline of resilience, and a shared spirit that binds the African continent and the Bahamas. In recognition of this new chapter in the diasporic partnership, today, it is with immense pride we officially signed the agreement for the Bahamas to host the African Export-Import Bank's annual general meeting this coming June. Our ancestral history is marked by strength in the face of adversity, beauty and creativity, even amid scarcity, and a relentless pursuit of self-determination. In the Caribbean, our forebears, who traversed the vast expanses of the Atlantic, not by choice, but by force, today unite us in a cause that is far greater than the ocean that separates us. Their dreams, their struggles, and their hopes are encapsulated in this moment as we, their descendants, forge a future where Africa and the Caribbean stand shoulder to shoulder, not just in solidarity, but in economic collaboration for mutual prosperity.
Today is a remarkable day. In a simple ceremony, we set the stage for an event which would have been beyond contemplation just a few years ago. Today, we sign a hosting agreement that will bring our Afreximbank annual meeting to the Caribbean, retracing the infamous Middle Passage, but in this case, giving it new meaning and purpose. By simple strokes of our pens, we will commit to an event that will solidify the partnership between Afreximbank and CARICOM states, a partnership that will form the platform for global Africa to take its destiny into its hands. I must thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, and your government for the warm reception my team and I have received since arriving in Nassau, and for your unwavering commitment to our shared goal of strengthening links between Africa and the Caribbean. I also thank you for your kind words expressed this morning. It is a reflection of a blossoming friendship and partnership. Thank you very much. Honorable Prime Minister, about 10 months ago, in June 2023, you were a first-time guest at Afreximbank's 30th anniversary celebration and annual meeting held in Accra, Ghana. Today, we'll be signing an agreement to host the 31st annual meetings. It is an onerous responsibility you have willingly assumed, and which we sincerely appreciate and applaud.
And that is all for today. Thank you for joining us. Join us every Tuesday as we continue to bring you highlights, coverage, and information as we continue to do what we do best, linking people and government.